The power of invisibility probably sits at the very top table of superhero options. In science fact, however, it's an extremely difficult, so far impossible trick to properly pull off. Yes, there are now certain materials that can make it appear as though something that's behind or covered by them has disappeared. And of course, with film special effects on a screen, invisibility is actually a simple illusion to cast. But real, genuine, physically vanished into thin air invisibility? We just can't do that. Or at least, if we can do that, then most of the watching world is wholly unaware of it. In 1955, a bizarre story emerged via a former U.S. merchant mariner, Carl M. Allen. In short, Allen claims to have once witnessed part of a top-secret experiment in which the U.S. Navy turns the USS Eldridge, a destroyer escort, invisible. According to Allen, it had all happened 12 years previously, in October 1943. The Eldridge had been docked at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard, a one-time crucial hub for American forces at sea. At the same time, Allen claims to have been on another ship, from which he saw the Eldridge fade and disappear. It's said that the ship then turned up hundreds of miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, before disappearing again and reappearing back in Philadelphia. Importantly, even at this early stage in the story, accounts do differ. Some have Allen in Philadelphia, watching the Eldridge go and come back, while some have him in Norfolk, witnessing it suddenly appear and then vanish. Some accounts also claim that the Eldridge arrived in Norfolk a few minutes before it allegedly left Philadelphia, implying that there might have been some kind of time travel at play, as well as the invisibility and teleportation. From the very beginning, then, there are inconsistencies in the story. Nevertheless, there are some commonalities too. For one, it's said that the crew aboard the Eldridge suffered immensely as a result of their seemingly impossible ordeal. Some sailors allegedly disappeared, never to be seen again, while some remained not just on the ship, but in it. Upon the Eldridge re-emerging in Philadelphia, it's said that some of the crew found themselves fused into the fabric of the ship itself, body parts merging into walls and floors, and in most cases, a painful death shortly followed. If the Philadelphia experiment really did happen, then it clearly didn't all go to plan. But there, of course, is the big question. Did it happen? It forever has its place in conspiracy and folklore. But should we really believe that America, 80 years ago, managed to dissolve an entire warship? And not only that, but managed to beam it more than 200 miles south down its own east coast as well. Nowadays, the calls of hoax are extremely loud, and for good reason. First off, there's the plain physical impossibility of it all. As per mainstream science, Allen reportedly said the ship's invisibility, which allegedly unfolded amidst a greenish cloud of gas, was made possible due to an until then unknown application of the theories of Albert Einstein. And while so many of Einstein's ideas have come to light today, true invisibility still isn't one of them. Allen was voicing his claims at the time when so much of modern physics was still misunderstood, when there was much more room for a flexible interpretation of the rules. And skeptics argue that the Philadelphia experiment was more the product of a wild imagination than a true grasp of science. From the Navy's perspective, there's been little by the way of an official response to any of what supposedly happened. Although, much of what has been said also implies that if Allen really believed he saw anything, it might have, again, all been due to a huge misunderstanding. The Second World War was at its height in October 1943, and beginning with Pearl Harbor itself, American naval bases have become places of intense scrutiny, as the watching public tried to assess how its country was faring in the fight. They were also places for cutting-edge technology, though, and there were multiple projects underway aimed at cloaking US ships from the enemy. It's just that the plan was more to scramble magnetic signals emitted by US vessels to ensure that they couldn't be tracked or targeted. The plan was never to physically disintegrate a ship, as Allen claimed he saw. The really damning case against the Philadelphia experiment, though, is that even Allen himself began to backtrack on his story later in life. Much of the original legend has been based on handwritten notes in a copy of a book sent to the U.S. Office of Naval Research in 1955. The book in question was a then bestseller, The Case for the UFO: Unidentified Flying Objects by Morris K. Jessup. It had been released during the early UFO boom, but Allen sent it in an all-new direction. He mailed his annotated copy anonymously to the ONR, which included in its margins various musings apparently jotted by 3 different people. The ink shades were all different, and the handwriting changed from one to another. The topics covered included things like alien propulsion, ET spaceships, and the Philadelphia experiment. It appeared as though the book could serve as proof of advanced technology, including invisibility, being used in America. However, in reality, it was Allen himself who had written all of the notes, admitting it years after the event. By then, though, the Philadelphia experiment had become deeply embedded in modern myth, and it's remained there ever since. Official records even show that the USS Eldridge wasn't actually in Philadelphia at the time that the supposed event took place. But the conspiracy counter-argument says, isn't that just what they would want us to think? Allen ultimately left the public eye, having retracted most of his statements, and died in 1994. Meanwhile, Jessup, who had unwittingly been brought into the story, died in 1959, with his death ruled as suicide. Again, some conspiracy theorists doubt the precise circumstances around Jessup's death and Allen's disappearance, alleging instead that both had grown to know too much about the inner workings of America and advanced technology. But what's your verdict? Is there more to this story than the records show? Or is the entire thing an elaborate hoax?